Hi everybody, welcome to the first lecture. It's just kind of an introduction to digital technology and covering a little bit about what we will be covering this semester in the fundamentals of digital and online media. And when we think about the word digital, probably a lot of things come to our mind, but I think we have to really think about the dramatic change that pretty much every single industry has taken, transformed itself from a traditional to a digital. And that is not just a media-focused thing. Every industry, if you think about it, has made a transformation in some way as a result of digital technology. Even reaching as far as things like, a geologist, they have a lot of equipment that uses technology that can digitize and provide data for what's happening under our earth and analyzing that big data on a bigger scale than they ever have before. And being able to digitize the physical is something that I think is underestimated. Think about our entire stock market is digitized, right? We can access stocks and we can trade. We don't have to go to a trading floor or anything like that. We can do it all digitally. So all of e-commerce and money and the medical industry is being digitized daily, and new technology is happening constantly where they're getting, digital feedback on our bodies, and the idea of what is human, and cybernetic, organisms and things like that are really something that we have to think about, as it relates to our future of humanity. The restaurant business, is being upturned by digital technology. Being able to do things like Uber Eats and being able to check in when you get to a restaurant and having digital menus and all the things that we see restaurants do. The auto industry, mechanics, engineering, all of these kind of, jobs that require people in the past to have gone through some kind of an apprenticeship now are being very much replaced in some cases by computers and digital technology, but also our computers are being automated and all kinds of things like that. The sports industry, and everything from being able to analyze the data of sports players and stats and things like that, to even sports athletes getting in trouble for things that they tweet, and celebrities and all kinds of things like that. I think in general, this idea of digital being just a digital media thing is really, we have to look at all the industries that are being affected by digital technology and think about the music industry. I think that's one that is really obviously that we see a lot. And one really stark reminder of this is when the coronavirus really started to hit, pretty much every industry became a digital industry. Every industry needed a website, needed to communicate using digital technology, using video, using social media, getting the word out. And so, I saw a lot of gyms, posting, hey, we can pivot to online and we can teach you to do what was traditionally done in person. We're now going to go online. Same with things like Pluckers. You go to Pluckers for the experience, for the food, right? But they had to pivot to an online strategy. And so things like doing trivia nights online and still engaging their fans and followers and things like that is something they have to do, on a daily basis. But this coronavirus really, made that even more so. And so I think this digital transformation is not just focused here on the immediate industry, but every single industry that exists has been upturned by digital technology. And, if you think about your specific major or what you want to do as a media professional, it again has been upturned by digital technology. If you think about the New York Times, a traditionally news organization, their bread and butter was that newspaper that would come out in the morning and they would get sent to your doorstep, and they would get kids on bikes and they would print them early in the morning, and they would do whatever they could to get the best news possible to your front door. And that was their one product. This was their bread and butter. Today, if you think about the New York Times, they have to, create their online presence through a website, right? They have to maintain a website, and they have coders, and they have people who are constantly writing articles, not for a print medium, but for a digital medium, which is a little bit different. They have a YouTube channel where they're coming up with videos. That was not something they had done 30 years ago. the New York Times, coming up with videos that they're now video journalists. If you think about the app, the New York Times app, they have people who've developed the app and are studying how people are using apps. They have a podcast, okay? So they have audio, storytelling, something that they've never really done before either. And now they have coders that have to maintain all this kind of stuff. They have designers who are thinking about the user experience. They have people who run their social media strategy. And they also still have to run the newspaper and print a newspaper. And so this is not just a pivot to let's just add a few digital components to what we do. Digital has become central to how the New York Times functions. It is not just something that you throw onto it. It is really totally transformed the way that news organizations in every really industry communicates. And so when you think about news, when you think about the media, you're really saying three major things. You have content. You have the content, the stories, what the person is seeing. You're having a strategy for how you put that out. What is the strategy for creating that content? Whether it's inverted pyramid style, you have interviews that you have to do. You have a strategy for how you promote events and things like that. And then you've also got technology behind it. Technology has always existed in the printing press and in, being able to communicate using fax or using, printers or whatever kind of technology you need in terms of media. And a lot of people think that you can just add a digital component to it and say, okay, well, one of the things that we do is a digital thing as well. Let's get all the digital folks and put them over here and let them just kind of do their own thing. The reality is this does not work because we're really not dealing with just content, just strategy, and just technology anymore. We're dealing with digital content, digital strategy, and digital technology. And so instead of adding a digital component to what we're trying to cover in the media industry, we actually have to cover everything with digital. It is a covering that covers how we communicate, how we strategize, how we use technology, and everything is different now, thanks to digital technology. And so if you think about public relations, years ago to get a public image out, you had press releases, you could buy airtime, you could do whatever you wanted to kind of get that word out. Today, a lot of it is on social media and a lot of it is just immediate. We underestimate how easy it is to access Southwest Airlines and get customer service right from our phones, using Twitter, and they want to DM you. And this is just a different world that we're living in where, I think a lot of us take for granted what it was like 20 years ago to communicate with a brand or for a brand to listen and know what you're saying about them. If Nike came out with a new pair of sneakers and they wanted to know what people thought about it, there's really no great way to measure that other than through focus groups and more traditional methods. But today they can just type in, that new sneaker in a search bar on Twitter, and they can listen now like never before because of digital technology. And so you can directly communicate with these brands and they can directly communicate with you using digital technology. I think about, I own a Jeep and I just bought a rag top for it, and I was looking at it online, of course, before I bought it, the physical version. Right? And so we always have a digital experience with a product or a service before we have a physical experience with it. And most people are going to go to the website first to check it out, right? You go to Amazon, you look at the product and you see if it's what you want. You look at the ratings, right? Usually you'll do that even before you physically go to a store and try on a pair of clothes or something like that. Same with music. You're going to have a digital experience with music before you have before you go to a concert and hear it in person or any kind of physical purchase. We will have a digital first mindset, and news organizations and companies have to have a digital first mindset because they have to understand that people are going to have a digital experience before they have a physical experience in today's day and age. And so that's why it's so important for us to be able to communicate well using social media, using websites, using digital content, and to understand that there is a digital literacy that we have to learn here. It's not just a layer, it's just not an extra add-on. This is completely changed the way we do media. Think about advertising, another great example of this. I mean, most advertising we see is done on the platform of Instagram or pre-roll before a YouTube video. It doesn't look anything like it did 20 years ago. And so we're gonna be able to interact with brands like never before, but brands also now have data that they can follow us and find us and personalize ads, and not just do an ad that you might possibly be interested in. They can now use the cookies in our browser to retarget ads to us. As you can see, this is not just a digital, add-on. This is completely changing the game in the way that ads are done. The New York Times is one example of a job that you might get in the media. You may have to be kind of a startup person in the New York Times where you're coming up with entrepreneurial ideas, because these big organizations have to actually start working like and thinking like a startup, like a digital company. They have to think about the digital product before they think about the physical product. You may end up working at a place like Facebook that didn't exist 15, 20 years ago, and a place like Amazon, a place like one of these big tech companies that are popping up. They need media people who can be good communicators. And so the idea is that you may get a job in a traditional media company, but being a digital person, that being the digital, entrepreneurial focused person within that, the innovator within the New York Times, because they need that. They need digital people there. You may end up working at a startup, creating your own company, creating your own, strategy for building your brand. You may end up working at a tech company. There are many different jobs that you can have as a media professional today that didn't exist 30 years ago. And, there are many, many, many options that we'll talk about throughout the semester. And again, that's what we're going to talk about this semester, is how to have a digital literacy for the age that we're in. Being able to communicate effectively to audiences, being able to have those skills that employers are needing right now: digital video editing, digital photography, digital user experience, being able to code, being able to understand how people communicate and make money online. I mean, there is an entire world and environment here that we're really going to be studying, and hopefully it'll get you excited for the future of media. Now, one last thing I'll leave you with is I want you to start thinking about your brand. And maybe you've never thought about your brand before. Maybe you don't have a brand. Maybe you already do have a brand. It's something that you have been thinking about. But regardless of whether you put a lot of time or effort into thinking about your brand or not, the fact is that every single one of us has a digital footprint. Basically a digital version of ourselves that exists online, whether you want one or not. My dad is not someone who's tech savvy at all. He's not going to be online at all, but there's things on him online that he didn't put on there, but he has a digital footprint, even though he doesn't really want one. And that's the fact of the matter, is a brand, business, and people have a digital footprint. Now, the digital footprint is made up of what you say about yourself, the things that you post, the websites that you have, the photos you post on Facebook, and the status updates that you put on Twitter and whatever you put on Instagram. These are things that you say about yourself. That's part of that footprint. Another part of that footprint is what others say about you. If they tag you in a photo or tag you in a post or rate your business on Yelp, and you never put the Yelp page up, but they have been saying things about you, this is what they have to think about. It's part of the overall footprint. And then third is the info trail that you leave behind. The fact that companies have data on you, on how long you went to their website, where you went, what you clicked on. This data that follows us, our data trail, really is part of our footprint. It's the meta version of our footprint. It's the things that they have on us that we really don't know. But the idea here is all these things make up who you are online. And of these three spheres, what do you have the most control over? You have the most control over what you say about yourself. And that's what we're going to focus a lot about in this class, is especially through this semester-long project where you're going to build your brand. You really have a lot to say about yourself, so that when that employer Googles you, they may see the photos that you were tagged in that you don't really want to be in, or they may have info on you that you didn't really want them to have. But what you do have control over is the website that pops up, the social media that pops up when they Google you, because your employer will Google you. And the hope is that by the end of the semester, you have a really good portfolio of digital content that is quality that you can really bring into a job interview, an internship, and show that you do have a strong digital literacy and that you have been thinking about your digital footprint so that you can add to their digital footprint and be a better media practitioner, and just be that much more marketable in the industry. So we will cover a lot of this on Wednesday as well. And then tomorrow in our online module, June 2nd, we're going to cover how to start working with WordPress and how to start thinking about online content creation. So in the meantime, start thinking about a topic that you might want to write about this semester, just this month. Start thinking about a topic that you're most interested in. Think about what you could talk about all day. Think about those things that you're really interested in, whether it's movie reviews or restaurant reviews or skateboarding, or even if you don't have any interest or any skill in an area, you may want to start looking into it. It could be like the beginner's guide to longboarding or the beginner's guide to golfing, and you can kind of share your just starting off tips and things like that. So really the options are wide and vast, and I hope you have I hope you're excited about it and have a good time doing it. So we will see you tomorrow in our Zoom lecture, and if you cannot make it, it will be recorded and you can watch it, and then we'll continue with content on Wednesday.